What if Daredevil returned to Netflix for a fourth season? Well, it almost did, and it would have featured Melvin Potter's descent into the villainous Gladiator, a twisted love story murder mystery with Typhoid Mary, and the rise of the Owl as a new crime boss, with plans to bring back Benjamin Poindexter for a fifth and final season and transform him into Bullseye. When the series was eventually resurrected on Disney Plus as Daredevil Born Again, it was originally radically different, with several episodes being filmed before production stopped to retool the show. So let's dive in and find out why the show was originally canceled, why the Disney Plus show was radically overhauled, and take a look at what could have been Daredevil Season 4 and Daredevil Born Again. In 2013, Marvel struck what Netflix called the biggest deal in the history of television, a bold commitment to 5 original shows without pilots, each with 13 high-budget episodes centered around a single hero, culminating in an ambitious crossover event. The lineup included Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and The Punisher, and it initially seemed like a masterstroke. Critics praised the darker, grittier tone and more grounded storytelling, particularly in Daredevil, which quickly became the crown jewel of the slate. But behind the scenes, tension simmered. Netflix clashed with a notoriously frugal Marvel television division, which was operating independently from Disney. Netflix pushed for more resources to make the shows bigger and better, but Marvel Television wanted to keep costs low, as whatever they didn't spend, they kept. According to Netflix wanted to make great television, while Marvel wanted to make money. Meanwhile, Disney was quietly building its own rival streaming service, Disney Plus, which when released would create a conflict as Netflix would be producing and promoting content for and owned by a competitor. After Daredevil's critically acclaimed third season, showrunner Eric Olesen pitched plans to Netflix for a fourth, but despite the show's popularity, Netflix canceled it and its other Marvel series. Additionally, contract terms barred Marvel from using the characters elsewhere for 2 years, effectively shelving the heroes just as Disney Plus was gearing up for launch. The cancellation blindsided Marvel and much of the cast and crew. A significant development had already gone into season 4, with everyone assuming the series would run for 5 seasons. Charlie Cox, who portrayed Matt Murdock, had been particularly excited about the creative direction for the 4th season and felt there were still many stories to tell. So what would season 4 have been about? One of the key villains planned for it was Leland Owlsley, aka the Owl, a lesser known but compelling crime boss from the comics. While the Netflix series introduced him in season 1 as a shady businessman working under Wilson Fisk, his story was cut short when Fisk killed him. Season 4, however, would have picked up that thread by introducing a son, who would adopt the mantle of the Owl and seek revenge over his father's death. With Kingpin seemingly behind bars after season 3, the stage was set for a power vacuum in Hell's Kitchen, and in the comics, the Owl famously tried to position himself as the next Kingpin. That dynamic would have made for a powerful new antagonist and a fresh challenge for Daredevil. Another major storyline planned for season 4 centered around Mary Walker, portrayed by Alice Eve, who was first introduced in Iron Fist season 2. Known in the comics as Typhoid Mary, she's a complex villain with at least 3 distinct personalities, ranging from the quiet and passive Mary to the violent and seductive Typhoid and the brutal Bloody Mary. The showrunners intended to reintroduce her in Daredevil as part of a dark psychological arc that would blend elements of a love story and a murder mystery. Their vision was to reimagine the classic femme fatale through a feminist modern lens, as opposed to the outdated, sexist femme fatale archetype. Her return would have introduced a morally complex and emotionally challenging dynamic for Murdock, forcing him to confront his feelings for someone who posed a real threat, balancing love, danger, and his own moral code. This twisted relationship would have pushed Daredevil into some of his darkest emotional territory yet. Season 4 also planned to delve deeper into the arc of Melvin Potter, the gifted costume designer and armor specialist behind Daredevil's suits and weapons, portrayed by Matt Gerald. In the comics, Potter eventually designs his own suit, transforming into the villainous Gladiator in order to kill Daredevil to prove that he's superior to any superhero. He's a tragic figure caught between his violent instincts and his longing for redemption. Over time, however, Potter began to regret his actions. He was portrayed as someone struggling with his violent tendencies and mental instability. The show intended to explore that evolution, as it had already hinted at the character's duality, portraying Potter as someone manipulated by Fisk and torn between fear, loyalty, and guilt. Eventually, the plan was to gradually shift him from conflicted ally to potential adversary. However, bringing that storyline to life proved difficult due to scheduling conflicts with Gerald, who was simultaneously committed to filming James Cameron's Avatar sequels. limiting his availability for the ambitious arc. While Bullseye played a major role in Daredevil Season 3, the plan was never to continue his arc immediately. With his spine shattered in the finale, the character, Benjamin Poindexter, was left physically broken and sidelined. Therefore, Season 4 would have focused on new threats, while Bullseye's full transformation was being saved for the 5th season. As Charlie Cox later explained, Season 3 essentially served as Bullseye's origin story, showing how Poindexter spiraled into villainy, while Season 5 was intended to showcase him fully evolving into the deadly assassin fans know from the comics, finally pinning Daredevil against a fully realized Bullseye. Matt Murdock would eventually appear in No Way Home, while D'Onofrio's Fisk would appear in Hawkeye, spurring rumors that development for a new Daredevil series was underway. Cox would note, however, that when he snuck in to see No Way Home in theaters, he expected a huge audience reaction to his cameo, only to be met with crickets. Regardless, work would begin on a new series of Daredevil for Disney+, with plans to start fresh and not treat it like a 4th season of the Netflix series, whose violent and more adult tone contrasted with the MCU's now established lighter style. And while Cox and D'Onofrio had reservations about the new direction, being professionals, they went along with it. However, John Bernthal, who played the Punisher, didn't. He was asked to appear in the show but declined, as he didn't like the direction the series would have taken Frank Castle and thought it wasn't congruent with what had come before, and thus wouldn't appeal to fans. After filming 6 episodes, Marvel was forced to halt production due to the writer's strike and then the actor's strike, giving Marvel time to review what was shot. And they would come to the same conclusion that Cox and D'Onofrio had reached even before cameras started rolling, especially after both actors once again raised their concerns to Kevin Feige. The new direction simply wasn't working, and it was unclear if this was a continuation of the Netflix show or a total reboot. For example, Sandrine Holt was cast as Vanessa Fisk, replacing Ayelet Zerer, who had played Vanessa in the original Netflix series. As a result, Marvel made sweeping changes, letting go of head writers Chris Ord and Matt Corman, and the remaining directors. In their place, Punisher writer Dario Scarta-Payne was brought in as showrunner, while directing duties were handed to Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, known for Moon Knight and Loki. The new creative team began reshaping the series to better match the tone of the Netflix series. New episodes were written, and footage was shot to work alongside the existing footage, resulting in somewhat of a Frankenstein monster of a season. So what did the series originally look like? It would have opened with Daredevil crying by the water before removing his mask, and throwing it aside in response to Foggy dying, which we wouldn't have even seen. He would have been shot off camera by a dirty cop, instead of Bullseye, who wasn't even planned to be in the series. Not only that, but Karen wasn't in the show either, nor was she even mentioned. In playing fast and loose with the continuity of the original Netflix series, Marvel planned to act like she never existed. After Daredevil throws his mask away, we would have cut to 1 year later, and seen Fisk giving a speech at Times Square having become the mayor. Basically, the episode 1 that we know didn't exist. It would have started with episode 2 and largely been a legal procedural that wouldn't have even seen Cox show up in costume as Daredevil until after a few episodes. Eventually, a new pilot was written to show Foggy's death, deliver on the Netflix series tease of Dex's transformation into Bullseye, bring back Karen, and showcase some intense, grounded fight scenes that made the original Daredevil series a fan favorite. Not only that, but it was Cox's idea to have Daredevil hear Foggy's heartbeat as it grew fainter and stopped. Fisk's role was also revised. Rather than already serving as mayor in the original version, he would now be portrayed as actively running for the position. Ultimately, the original episodes 1 through 6 were restructured. Some shots were cut, others newly added, and repurposed to serve as episodes 2 through 7 in the revised season. For example, White Tiger's death scene was originally shot to make it look like he was killed by a dirty cop. This would later be reshot so that we'd see the Punisher symbol on the killer's shirt. Commissioner Gallo didn't originally die either. After watching the scene between Gallo and Fisk that was already shot, showrunner Dario Scarta-Payne felt the way Gallo talked down to Fisk meant he couldn't escape unscathed. In his view, the more disrespectful someone is to Fisk, the more brutal and inevitable the consequences should be, making Gallo's death feel earned and thematically consistent with Fisk's character and past actions. Ultimately, Marvel's decision to abandon the elements that made Daredevil a fan favorite on Netflix was baffling, especially with stars like Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio, and John Bernthal voicing their concerns to Marvel about the show's new direction. Had the strikes not forced production to pause, the original plan likely would have led to major fan backlash. Fortunately, the course correction steered the show back on track, but it also served as a warning. As superhero fatigue has set in following the conclusion of the Infinity Saga, Marvel can't afford to keep misreading the room. Thanks for watching, everybody, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Bullets and Blockbusters for more great content.